Spectre was directed by Sam Mendes and it sees Daniel Craig reprising his role as Bond for the fourth time. Spectre also stars Léa Seydoux, Ralph Fiennes, Christoph Waltz, Dave Bautista, Ben Whishaw and Naomi Harris. Spectre takes place after the events of Skyfall, and in it we see Bond receiving a cryptic message which leads him to a criminal organisation known as Spectre. Skyfall for me was one of the most emotional Bond films ever. It was a film that was loaded with surprises. It was a film that grossed over $1 billion worldwide and the first Bond film to do so. It won numerous Academy Awards and it was one of my favourite Bond films, right up there with Casino Royale, and it more than redeemed itself after the mess that was Quantum of Solace. Like Casino Royale that preceded it, any Bond film that came after that had its work cut out for it. And I can say that Spectre, whilst not as good as Skyfall, whilst not as good as Casino Royale, way better than Quantum of Solace. Spectre has a lot of good action sequences, some good performances, but it lets itself down by becoming formulaic in certain areas and also because of the plot and the subplot within the film that drags on, and I'll go into those things in a minute. Spectre falls into the tradition of previous Bond films. So from the opening sequence, the traditional gun barrel sequence, we know that we're in for something. And the opening sequence in Mexico City with the Day of the Dead, just how that is shot, beautiful. And then from the opening sequence where Bond blows up a building to the helicopter sequence, all filmed brilliantly. And it's a scene that grabs you from the get-go. Spectre is not as emotionally driven as Skyfall, but it is more action-packed than Skyfall. What I like about Spectre is the fact that it connects all of Daniel Craig's previous outings as Bond. So all the villains, La Chief, Dominic Green, Mr. Silver, all were part of this organisation. Performance-wise, Daniel Craig looked bored in this film. Whilst his performance was good, it was nowhere near as good as it was in previous Bond films. And I hope that he regains that spark when he signs off with No Time to Die. I did like that Jesper Christensen, who played Mr. White in Casino Royale and Quantum of Solace, has a more significant part to play in this film. Because Léa Seydoux is his daughter and she's one of the main protagonists in this film, and I like what they did with that character and how they signed him off. Dave Bautista has shown himself to be an up-and-coming actor and shown himself to be a really, really good presence in the cinematic market. It was good for him to play a more villainous role as opposed to the light-hearted comedic role that he played as Drax in Guardians of the Galaxy. And he was on top form in this film and made a formidable foe for Bond. Christoph Waltz is one of the best character actors around. He's won back-to-back Academy Awards for Django Unchained and Inglourious Basterds, but in this film, I felt that his character could have been evolved more. Because his character only shows up in the latter half of the film, maybe like the last 30 minutes. And he didn't show anything. He just said, you know, I'm the reason for all your pain. And it would have been good to see the more villainous side of his character, Oberhauser. Unlike Mads Mikkelsen, Javier Bardem's character, Mr. Silver, these guys showcased themselves and they were in the film and you felt the menace of these characters. And the rest of the supporting cast were all on top form as well. Naomi Harris, Ben Whishaw, Ralph Fiennes. It was good to see Ralph Fiennes in the role of M and to see him develop that role further. There are some brilliant action sequences in this film. It's got a great car chase, the opening sequence with the helicopter, some good shootouts, etc. And they're all handled competently, but you can't help but think that the pace of this film, this is what these action sequences are used to cover. Because at 2 hours plus, Spectre does drag on a little bit. There is a fight sequence between Hinks, which is Dave Bautista's character, and James Bond, which is easily a homage to the iconic fight between Robert Shaw and Sean Connery in From Russia with Love. That fight was good, but it was nowhere near as epic as the fight scene that was in From Russia with Love. It was just these two guys pummeling one another, attempting to kill one another. There was no structure. It was just these guys trying to do whatever it takes to get the job done. In Spectre, it looked more structured. I think the only fight sequence from a Bond film that has managed to capture it was GoldenEye. Spectre didn't have the claustrophobia or the menace of that fight sequence from those two Bond films that preceded it. Spectre moves into formulaic territory, which isn't always a bad thing, but I think for the Daniel Craig tenure as Bond, I think it is. So in this film, we see Bond has been equipped with a car that's got gadgets in it, and a watch that explodes. And that's not always a bad thing, but I think what makes it bad is the fact that they've attempted to move towards making this film more humorous. They try to inject more humour. And that isn't always a good thing, because I think what made Daniel Craig's tenure as Bond so good was the fact that it moved away from all of those tropes that made the Bond film seem cliche and bordering on the Austin Powers. And I think that if they would have just stuck to the original formula, it would have worked. And there were jokes that just missed their mark. And I don't think it was due to the writing. I think because Robert Wade, John Logan, Neil Purvis, all great writers. They did a fantastic job on Skyfall. And here I think that Daniel Craig is a great actor, but in terms of comedic, I don't think he's got the delivery. Someone like Roger Moore, Pierce Brosnan, they'll show you how it's done. There was one line in the film where he refers to Max as C. He was trying to imply something else, but that joke didn't hit its mark at all. Spectre suffers from pacing issues, and there was a sub-story in this film that just didn't need to be there. It involved Max, who is the head of this new IT organisation, who's trying to phase out the 00 program and move MI6 into the technological era. We saw that done with Mission Impossible Rogue Nation, and I felt that that storyline in Spectre was totally unnecessary. It could have been cut out, and they could have just focused more on the development of Oberhauser's character, and more importantly, the development of Spectre. And I find that if you would have elaborated on that further, you would have had a better film and a more better paced film. And it borders on the formulaic, even after the fight scene between Bond and Hinks. Bond then goes to bed with Lea Seydoux' character. And I felt that that is typical Bond from what we saw in the 70s and the 80s. And I felt that they need to come away from that. They needed to do something more to show Bond as a human being and as an assassin. Like in the shower scene in Casino Royale, where Vesper is traumatized after seeing Bond to kill 2 people and he just hugs her in a shower. Nothing. Just shows the emotional side of it. And while Spectre lacks the emotional punch that Skyfall packed, it is far better than Quantum of Solace. And I will give this film a very, very strong 7 out of 10. So, we reviewed all 4 Bond films. I was hoping that this would coincide with No Time to Die, which comes out in April, but they have pushed it back to November. So, I'm always skeptical about a person's last entry as Bond, purely because traditionally, the last Bond film that somebody does isn't always that great. Die Another Day for Pierce Brosnan, whack, compared to how he started out with GoldenEye. Sean Connery's last outing, Diamonds Are Forever, wasn't his best compared to how he started out with Dr. No. A View to a Kill, Roger Moore's outing, wasn't that great compared to how he started out with Live and Let Die. So I'm hoping that Daniel Craig's last film, No Time to Die, will break the tradition. He'll sign off perfectly. He'll give us a Bond film that we all wanted and will enjoy. It's going to be the longest Bond film at 2 hours and 40 minutes, and I hope that the pacing doesn't drag, and that it's as entertaining as Skyfall and as Casino Royale. So, that's my thoughts. Hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, hit that alarm bell so you can get notifications from me when my videos will be released. Leave your comment with what is your favourite Bond film from Daniel Craig thus far. I'll see you on the next film review. Take care.